Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. In this tutorial, I'm going to show you how to make a candle out of cake. Believe it or not, we're getting to the end of the year already, and this is something that I actually made a version of years ago when I was working with Tastemade. I made this chocolate mousse white chocolate candle, and I haven't done it from cake yet. And so when I was thinking of some designs that suited this time of year, I thought, let's try a candle again out of cake. So what I've baked is an extra tall 4-inch chocolate cake. Now this is my regular recipe, but I've times it by 1.5. In my new book, George's Cakes, and also on my channel, you can see where I've listed different quantities of my sponge cakes and how easy it is to change the recipe depending on what size you want. So this is my 4-inch cake, but times by 1.5. And what I've got here is my 4-inch tin that I baked the cakes in, and a piece of acetate going around, because I'm going to build up the cake in acetate. But because the cake is extra tall, it's probably going to come above the acetate, so I actually have another piece which I'll attach in a little bit, and I'm going to fill the cake with chocolate ganache. Now, this cake is very tall and narrow, and I want it to be as sturdy as possible. So I went for a sturdier filling such as ganache to ensure that the cake doesn't move around. So I'm going to place my first bit of cake inside the tin, just inside the acetate, and let it go. So you can see it fits directly inside. Then I'm going to pipe on a layer of my chocolate ganache around the outside first, and fill it with a nice even layer. Go on with my second layer of cake, press it down, and repeat. Next layer. So as you can see, the cake is already coming out the top of the acetate, and I still have one more layer to do. So I've got this other piece of acetate that I'm going to put around. And what I'm going to do is actually tape it into place. And I'm just going to tape it to the tin so it doesn't move around. And then go on with the last layer of ganache. And then the last layer of cake. So now the cake's filled, I'm going to pop this in the freezer for 15 minutes to get it nice and firm before I finish off the crumb coat. So my cake's been in the freezer for 15 minutes and it is super solid. Because it's ganache, it's going to get even harder than buttercream does. And now I'm going to complete the crumb coat by putting it on my cake board. So I've loosened up the ganache slightly, just to make it easier to ice. Place some ganache on my board. I can lift out the cake and place it on the board in the center. And then take off the acetate. Now I can re-wash this acetate and use it again. I'll just put it there for now. Wow, it's super tall, but it's nice and straight. So now I'm going to place on this ganache and crumb coat it. So obviously, being a taller, skinnier cake, it's a little bit more difficult to decorate. So I am taking my time with it. But the ganache does help with the stability. I would really recommend, if you're doing this size cake, then to work with ganache. So I'm just finishing off the crumb coat with the mini scraper, just so I can get into the little grooves easily. But because it's a crumb coat, it doesn't need to be perfect, so I don't mind that there are a few holes and everything left in there. So I'm just going to finish off by cleaning off these top corners. There, and I just had enough ganache. So that's nice and straight, nice and secure. I'm now going to put this in the fridge to let this layer harden, get my white chocolate ganache ready to do the outer coating of my candle. So the cake is now completely sturdy and a bit cold, which is important because now I'm going to pour over a ton of white chocolate ganache. So this is my white chocolate ganache, the same like I would use for drips, and I want to cover the whole thing. So I'm just going to pour it on top and work with it loose because it should solidify to the coldness of the cake, and then I'll smooth it out with the scrapers. So wish me luck because I've never done this before. Pour it all over the top and let it start dripping down the sides and go from there. So far so good, but I'm gonna need more. And I'm aiming for the whole cake to be covered. So I'm using the palette knife to bring the ganache backwards and forwards, taking from the top because it's obviously still dripping from there, and spreading it around the bottom, making sure the whole cake has got an even covering of this white chocolate ganache. And I can really feel the ganache setting. So it does feel totally different to buttercream. But I love how it has this natural shine to it. I think that's more or less covered. Now I'm going to start using the scraper to get it straight. Now at first it's a little bit tricky because it's still soft. So I'm really taking my time, going around the cake, slowly and gradually taking off the excess of chocolate ganache. So now it's solidifying, I can patch up the areas with more white chocolate. Because I started to see the darker chocolate come through. It's crazy, it kind of looks like wax already just because of the shine. Okay, so it took a while to get there, but you can now see that the ganache is setting to the cake. It's not as thick as I'd want it, but what I think I'm gonna do is try and make it as smooth as possible, put it back in the fridge and get it cold again, then go on with another layer, and that should do the trick to make it really, really smooth. I think it's still on the softer side and I'd want it a little bit firmer. So I'm just gonna go around a few more times before putting it back in the fridge. Okay, I think that's a good stage to put it back in the fridge. So I'm gonna leave it there for about 10 minutes and then go on with another layer. Okay, so that's firmed up a bit, so I'm gonna do the exact same thing with another layer of the ganache. So this is still nice and loose because it should set directly onto the cake. Yeah, it's much easier to work with now. There we go. Working with a smaller amount each time means that you can gradually build up the layers. Back on with a side scraper to get it nice and straight again. Okay, so I'm nearly there. It's just these last little patches that I want to get extra smooth. Now to do that, what I've actually got is a blowtorch, or at least this lighter, to just wet the surface a little bit. And then when I go over with a scraper, it's going to get a really smooth effect because it kind of melts that very top of the surface. And you obviously have to be careful doing this. You don't want to burn the chocolate, you don't want to make it too melted, but just a little bit really helps. So I'm just going over the top, especially where I want to smooth out, just to warm up that surface. And then I'll go on with the scraper to smooth it out. Okay, I'm not going to touch it anymore, I've worked on it long enough, but I'm happy with this layer of ganache, and what I also like is how the ganache has been pushed upwards as I've used the scraper and formed this kind of build up around the top. And if you think of a used candle, there's usually a build up of wax on the top, and there's also some wax dripping down the sides. So I'm going to use the leftover of my ganache to do exactly that. I'm going to put it in a piping bag and drip some nice ganache down the sides of the candle. So I loosened it back up and it can go into this piping bag. I'm going to drip the ganache down. And unlike my cakes, I'm not going to plan it too much because wax is random and some will overlap and that will just add to the effect. Actually, you know what? I want some double drips going on because that's exactly what a candle does. It's so much more fun when it doesn't have to be perfect like a cake does. This is looking great. I'm going to leave this layer to set and then go on with some more. Oh, this is looking so good. So I've done the 2 layers of drips now, but I do want to build up even more. So I'm actually going to put this in the freezer just for 5 minutes to ensure that they harden, then go on with the final layer of dripping. I love what's going on, especially these like crazy big drips that usually on a cake I would like cry about, but it's really working for the candle. Like I said, I'm just going to go on 1 more layer of drips because now this time it's going to really set on top of what I've done. And build even more on top. So the only thing missing is the little wick in the middle, and this is the same thing that I did years ago. I actually used an almond. Because they're flammable, it actually stays alight. So I'm just going to attach this by putting it in some chocolate ganache and place it on the top in the middle. And let's light it up. Look at that! We have a lit candle. Wow, that actually turned out so much better than I was expecting. It's all of a sudden looking a little bit slanted, but I guess candles can be a bit slanted. I think it's because it's such a tall and narrow cake, but I really love it. So I think this kind of cake is perfect for this time of year, whether it's for Halloween or October in general, or even going into winter. A candle is just such an iconic wintry item. So give it a go. Let me know how it goes for you if you do try it out. Please like this video, subscribe to my channel, and comment below with any other tutorials that you may want to see. Happy Halloween, happy October, happy end of year, whenever you're watching this. Hope you enjoyed it, and we'll see you very soon.